Good morning, students. Today you will learn about human respiratory system. The structures and organs used in breathing make up the respiratory system. The human respiratory system consists of the nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx or voice box, windpipe or trachea, bronchi and lungs. The lungs are situated in a space within the chest cavity called the thoracic cavity. The walls of the chest cavity are supported by the ribs. The base of the cavity is like a sheet of muscles called the diaphragm. Human respiratory system, the diagram of it: nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, bronchioles, trachea, lungs, bronchi, alveoli, diaphragm. As you can see, as the air enters through the nasal cavity, it passes through all these ways to reach the lungs. The mechanism of breathing in human beings. The mechanism of breathing can be understood by the following points. Normally, we take in air through our nostrils. When we inhale air, it passes through our nostril into the nasal cavity. From the nasal cavity, the air reaches our lungs through the windpipe. Lungs are present in the chest cavity, and this cavity is surrounded by ribs on the sides. A large muscular sheet called diaphragm forms the floor of the chest cavity. The mechanism of breathing involves the movement of the diaphragm and ribcage. The complete process of breathing can be discussed as follows. So children, see the diagram of mechanism of breathing in human. During inhalation, as the air is drawn in, the ribs move out and the diaphragm moves down. And during exhalation, when the air is forced out, here the ribs move back and the diaphragm also move back to its position. Breathing in or inhalation. When we breathe in or inhale, two processes occur together. That is, the muscles between the ribs contract, causing the ribcage to move upward and outward, while the diaphragm contracts and moves downward. This upward and downward movement of ribcage and diaphragm respectively increases the space in the chest cavity and makes it larger. As the chest cavity becomes larger, it sucks air from outside the lungs, and the lungs get filled up with air and expand. Breathing out or exhalation. When we breathe air out or exhale, the reverse process takes place. That is, the muscles of the ribs release, causing the ribcage to move downward and inward, while the diaphragm releases and moves upward. This downward movement of the ribcage and upward movement of the diaphragm decreases the space in our chest cavity and makes it smaller. When the chest becomes smaller, the air is pushed out of the lungs. Now let us study the same mechanism through an activity by making a model. Activity to demonstrate the working of a diaphragm during breathing. Things required: a bell jar, two small balloons, a large balloon, a Y-shaped tube and a cork. Method: fix the Y-shaped tube at the mouth of the bell jar as shown. On the open ends of the two branches of the Y tube, tie a balloon each. On the bottom of the bell jar, fix the large balloon. Here the Y-shaped tube represents the trachea, the two small balloons the lungs, and the large balloon the diaphragm. Pull the large balloon and observe the small balloons. Now release the large balloon and allow it to flatten. Repeat the process 3 or 4 times. So you can see the diagram here of the model, where a bell jar is taken, Y-shaped tube, two small balloons are attached to the end of the Y tube, and a large sheet is attached at the mouth of the bell jar. You can see here. So when it is pulled down, the air rushes in and the small balloons expand. When this is pushed back or released, the small balloons contract. As a result, the air is moving out. So this represents inhalation, the other one represents exhalation. So observation: when the lower balloon is pulled, the small balloons expand. When the lower balloon is released, the small balloons contract. Explanation: when the lower balloon is pulled, the space inside the bottle increases. Air from the open end of the Y-shaped tube rushes to fill the space. This expands the small balloons. This is similar to the expansion of lungs during inhalation. When the lower balloon is released, it relaxes, the excess air in the cavity rushes out, and the small balloons contract. This is similar to the contraction of the lungs during exhalation. The lower balloon acts like the diaphragm in our respiratory system. When pulled down, it replicates the downward movement of the diaphragm. When released, it represents the relaxed state of the diaphragm. I hope you have understood the mechanism of breathing. So that's all for today. Thank you.